I'm Danny Corbett with OTB Discs, and you're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast.
You're listening to the Chain Clankers podcast with your hosts, Quentin Ferris and Horatio Gonzalez. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers. Welcome in everyone to the Chain Clankers podcast. I'm your host Q here, joined as always with Horatio Gonzalez. We got a fantastic episode for you guys today. Got something a little bit different on today's show, but nonetheless, it's going to be a really good episode. Horatio, what can the people expect from today's episode?
Yeah, so today we sat down with Danny from OTB Discs. Really cool episode, a little different, not your typical, pro interview, which we love to do. We've noticed you guys love those, but this one we talk more on the business side of disc golf, how OTB began, kind of their story, and what their mission is, what they set out to be, and what their goals are going forward. And part of it also, we talk about sponsorship. We had one of their sponsored athletes on the podcast a few weeks ago, Ezra Adderhold, which was an awesome episode. And we kind of just talk about how they look at sponsorships, how they look at sponsoring players or just other events, not necessarily always players, but we talk about that. And then we even talk about a little bit in there about what OTB website means and what makes them different from everyone else, and why one of the things people like to do in disc golf is buy discs because they're pretty or they're cool. It's not necessarily just because they need it. And so buying a disc from a website as opposed to a store, it's a lot more tempting if you go to a store to buy in it. So they're competing with all of that. And so we talk about that, and they even throw in there some promo codes. So listen for those and enjoy the episode.
Danny, what's going on, my man? Super excited to have you come on the Chain Clankers podcast today. How are we doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, man, super excited to have you. This is the first time we've ever really talked to anyone on the business side of disc golf. So I think this is going to be a really cool, really informative show for our listeners out there. It's definitely not going to be maybe the normal episode you're used to listening to, but I think there's going to be a ton of value in this one. I'm really excited for it. How has business been lately, especially, Black Friday just came and went. I know it's a super busy time for you guys. Have you been getting a lot of sleep, or have we been up all night getting these orders out?
It's crazy. I mean, it's been crazy since March, like everything has been. But with the increase in demand that we've seen from all the new golfers into the sport, and then just the increase in e-commerce in general since March, it's been nuts ever since. We've been hiring people like crazy, and the manufacturers are doing what they can do to keep up with demand. New hot releases all the time. It's nuts. I get some sleep, but otherwise we're going.
Nice. That's awesome. We'll get into it here in a little bit about what exactly OTB Discs is. So if you're still unsure of what that is, head over to their website right now. It's honestly one of the best disc golf websites out there. It truly makes it very easy for you to get the disc that you want. So we'll definitely get into that here in a minute or so. But Danny, let's kind of start with your own disc golf journey. How did you first get into the sport of disc golf?
First of all, thanks for the love. We try hard. So I got lucky. I got started really early. My dad plays, so I was probably 7 or 8 when I got started. I think I never know how old I am. I'm 33 now, so I've been playing for a while. But yeah, I was probably 7 or 8 years old that he brought me out and started playing. I could still kind of have faint memories of that round. It was crazy windy. There was a lot of rain, and he was worried that I didn't have a good time. But of course, I had a blast. Got bit by the bug and been addicted ever since.
How did you go from, just playing for fun, or how long were you playing before you started to think about maybe turning it into a business or something?
It was a long time before I started to think about it as a business. I think so. We started like 94-ish, and it was probably right around 99, 2000 where we competed in our first tournament, my dad and I. Then it went up another notch, and so I started was playing juniors, got to play with Greg Barsby, I think, was one of my first tournaments. He was still playing juniors. Way better than me at that point. He's still way better than me. And a few other big like California names. And yeah, it took off after that as far as just tournaments every single weekend. Started to play a little bit better, was making my way up the ranks in AM2 and AM1, and was of course getting merch for that, getting discs. And so through high school, I was selling discs a little bit on eBay, just getting rid of some of the merch that I had, doing a little bit of like buying and collecting and selling, but not a ton. And then it wasn't until after college that I started to really think about disc golf as a business. Even then was kind of still just collecting and reselling a little bit. And then I think it was 2014 that decided to see what was up with starting a retail business, and that's where OTB began. And then we did the website 2016. I went full-time 2018 and hired the first employee, and now we're all the way up to I think 10 full-time employees.
Wow, that's awesome, my man. Talk a little bit about that journey, maybe just, kind of starting to get into the business and deciding to go full time with it. I imagine that's something that's very scary for someone to do. I'm imagining you had a different full time job going on at that time, and to potentially walk away from safety and security and knowing something, a check's going to be there every 2 weeks, to I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to try to make the best out of it. What was that decision like? Why did you inevitably choose to do that?
Thankfully, the decision wasn't made alone. I've got a good support group, starting with my wife and then my mom and dad. So it was that 2016 when we started the website, and then we could start to see trends going up as far as our awareness in the disc golf community, and then just sales starting to go up a little bit. My full-time job at the time was doing accounting and doing bookkeeping. So I owned my own business there and had a handful of local clients, and was making okay money there. But it got to the point in early 2018 where I really started to think about full-time disc golf and dedicating everything that I could to listing stuff on that website, and then opening up a brick and mortar store. That was October 2018, where we moved into a new store, and then late October where we actually opened up to the public. It was interesting for sure to try to to make that leap. Definitely happy that I did. It's paid off so far, and had good fallbacks. I knew that if it didn't work out for whatever reason, that I could go back to accounting and be fine there. But yeah, it was a leap that I wanted to take, and so far I'm really glad I did.
So when you had this idea, you wanted to do it, I guess, what was kind of the idea? You just wanted to be kind of like the middleman. You kind of wanted to grow this to be a huge retailer kind of thing. And then also when you started out very, very beginning, who were your competitors? Was there other people doing this sort of thing online?
Yeah, there was a ton that were way more established than us at the time, and still very much are. There's a lot of competitors in this space right now. There's a lot of people doing it really, really well. Some better than us in certain aspects, and some that I think that that we do it the best in the business. So yeah, there was a lot out there, and I guess my concept of what I thought we could do is basically get the disc as close to your hand as possible by describing it as best we do. For those who don't know, on our site, every single disc gets a high quality picture, which that I think is kind of standard right now in the industry, that you should have a picture of every single disc. We're doing a scaled weight of every single disc, which a few other people are doing now. And then what separates us is for every single disc, you're going to get a flatness rating and a stiffness rating. It's something that's important to me in my game. I like a flat and firm Firebird. I know that they're going to be really overstable. If it's a domey Firebird, then it's going to have a little more glide with reliable fade, but not that like super meat hook. I like, a flat Destroyer. A lot of people like the pop top. So everybody has their own, attributes that they really like about certain discs. And so we just try to make sure you know exactly what you're getting. And so I guess it was that probably as the main focus on what I thought we could bring to the market that maybe wasn't there already. And then also customer service. I'm the kind of guy that I'm going to answer questions day and night. If you're hitting us up on, Instagram or Facebook or an email through our site, is we're gonna try to get back to you ASAP, and we're just trying to get plastic to the people.
Yeah, and I think that's really awesome. I think there's definitely, you can tell what companies want to connect with their customers and want to grow with their customers, and then what companies are just kind of in there for their dollar, or, to get the customer out the door, whatever it is. So I guess, would you say, I don't know, like, when you were thinking about the idea of starting OTB, was it really just, you were really into disc golf and you wanted to do more in disc golf, and you kind of already, you're talking about in high school and college, kind of reselling some discs already. Was it kind of that passion, or maybe was it more of an opportunity in the market that you saw that, well, there's no one who's really doing this to the extent that I think that it should be done. I think there's a clear gap here that we could hit better, that I could hit better. Was it more of that, or was it just more, hey, I really like to do this. I think this could be profitable. This is something I want to continue to go out and do.
I'd love to say that it was more of the latter, and that I, had the foresight to see that, that there was this huge gap in the market, and that I thought we could fill it and it would hit. There was a little bit of that, but I think it was more just the passion. And I think, like a lot of golfers out there, and probably most of your listeners, would just love to have their life be nothing but disc golf. Especially as far as going to work and having your work be about the sport that you love. So I think it was much more of that. A big part of what brought me to selling discs too in the first place, besides just the eBay sales and some of that, was joining our local club and becoming the treasurer there for the Delta Windjammers Disc Golf Club, and all the tournaments that we were running. This was 2010. You would just get like a stack of plastic, and that was it. And so when I took over, we converted it to being a script type thing where you could choose what you actually get. That's when I started to order all the stuff from Innova and Discraft and these different companies, just custom stamp stuff for tournaments. And that sentiment was out there a lot as far as amateur golfers not really having a great selection for when they get paid out. And so a big part of OTB starting was trying to bring a much better selection to all these amateur golfers that were getting paid out like that. And then a good selection for anybody who's at the tournament as far as purchasing. But yeah, there was a gap there to me as far as just really providing something cool at tournaments for all the players.
That's one thing that kind of brings me to another thing I want to talk about is me and Quinn have talked about this a little bit in the past, but there's not many sports. You play soccer, you buy a soccer ball, and that's the soccer ball you use. Basketball, baseball, same. Disc golf, it's one of those sports where people buy a lot more discs than they need. I mean, I'm guilty of it. Quinn's guilty of it.
Today.
It's more of like merchandise. Definitely people buy like their throw disc and what they need and put in the bag and stuff. But now I feel like I'm starting to see that a lot of discs are what a lot of these companies, Innova, Discmania, all these, they're putting like limited releases out and all these like cool stamps, and it's more of merchandise that the players are buying, and to build a collection or to just have. Some of them throw them or they flip them on eBay or whatever they do with them, but you don't really see that in many other sports. What do you think about that as far as that part of disc golf?
Yeah, there's definitely some truth to that. I think that there's kind of two aspects with with buying a disc. There's the, I'm going to buy it, I'm going to throw it, or there's the collectability aspect of it. And disc golf really hits on that well on both sides. You can liken it almost to like a baseball card side where, or any sports cards where you're getting it purely just for the collectability and potentially the resale, but there's not much else you can do with it. Where, at least with a disc, if it doesn't end up being that collectible, you can end up throwing it. It's crazy how much the collector side of it has evolved. I think a big part of that is obviously the player base that's there. But also I think Facebook had a lot to do with that too. eBay, there was already a good, buyer and seller scene, but with Facebook and no fees, that kind of the barrier to entry for selling was completely removed. At that point, you just have to be able to ship a disc and take a picture, and you're ready to sell. So there's this huge pool now of people who are looking to buy and sell collector's discs, and then obviously plenty of people just buying it to throw.
That's a really cool answer. I'm really glad you actually brought up Facebook because, Horatio, I know you invited me to this group. It's like a Discraft auction group or something like that on Facebook. They'll literally, like you were saying, they'll take a picture of the disc, give a short little description, and then they'll just, bid in the comments. And it's genuinely really interesting to watch it happen. I mean, I saw the Halloween buzzes go for like $40, $50 on there when you were buying them for maybe 25 or something like that. And so it's really awesome to see that, this sport not only has, and you can literally still throw those discs if you want, but the ability to buy discs to throw and buy discs to collect and those signature series. And, I know one that kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the collectability of discs was the Cloudbreaker 2, Eagle McMahon's signature disc. And I want to ask you this, being in the game, being someone who sells discs, what I heard at least a lot, I had this complaint as well. And so I want to hear it from a professional, and more complaints have happened as if with more releases. What is that process of, releasing a disc at 5:00 or whatever time it goes live, 10 a.m., whatever it is. And then, a lot of people were complaining, oh, there's no cart protection. How am I supposed to be able to get this disc? I had it and then it was gone in my cart, a couple of seconds later.
Yeah.
Is there anything to actually prevent that? Is there a reason that it's that way and it's not cart protected? Is it literally just that's how Shopify is, and Shopify makes things more difficult than potentially they could be? Or is there actually a reason for that maybe not everyone knows about?
I think with this Mania, they've tested out cart hold, and I think they may have actually been able to institute it for the Iron Samurai release.
Okay.
And possibly something else. So I think the Skyrider. So I'm pretty sure it is offered through Shopify now. It's definitely something that people have had to worry about more and more with this increased demand. Also, with anything that high traffic, it wreaks havoc on the site. Mm-hmm. It's nuts, So with us at OTB, we do have cart hold. It's not a perfect system though. Still, what you're gonna get with us is you're not gonna have it officially in your cart, and someone else is gonna check out with it. But you might get a false positive as far as when you click add to cart on the screen that's showing all the discs. It's going to say it's added to your cart, and then you go to your cart and it says, I'm sorry, it's not actually in your cart. And that's because there's hundreds of people clicking the same button at the same time. And the very first one to get it is going to be a nanosecond before, another 99 people is going to get it in their cart, and everyone else is going to get, a false positive. And then if you're a full second after that, then it'll say, I'm sorry, this isn't added to your cart. So no matter what, it seems like there's going to be some problem along the chain. It's just, I guess, what you deal with when there's such high demand and when there's such high traffic on your site. One thing that can be done about that is produce a lot more discs. It's supply and demand in its truest form, where, there's only potentially 3, 4, 5,000 of these discs, and there's 10,000 people who want at least one of them. It's just tough. And I think it's never been more obvious than 2020, where we have a lot more people coming into the game, and it's been a little bit tougher, or probably a lot tougher, for these manufacturers to get their supply, whether it's the raw product or just the machine hours that they're able to dedicate to it. It's tough for sure. So I empathize, especially with that Cloudbreaker 2 run. I know we had announced for that run specifically that we weren't going to release them at the exact same time as everybody else. And we still had almost 1,000 people on our website, even though we had advertised we're not going to drop them at 10 a.m. or whatever time it was. There was still a ton of people on our site. So it's nuts. The demand is crazy right now.
Yeah. And see, that's what's crazy about those kind of discs. And it's, you could say make more of those certain discs. Like if they had made 10 times or 100 times as many more of those Cloudbreaker 2s or the Skyrider or anything else that sold out super quick this year. But I wonder how much of that is the company, it's kind of like a buzz disc. Not the Discraft bus, but just like a disc to get people's attention.
Yeah.
Get them to your site, get them to your, and you're going there for the Cloudbreaker 2. You miss out on it, you don't get it or something, but you're on the site, you're checking out what else is there, you're checking out what other discs are there. You were already committed to buying something. So even though you weren't able to get that disc, you're like, well, I want something that's close to the Cloudbreaker 2, or maybe something else, that's as cool or something. So then they go ahead and buy something else, or they go buy Discmania.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly possible. I think it's not at all what they want. They want to be able to sell people exactly what they want. It's probably some sort of ancillary benefit or a fallback that they might buy something else that's on their site, but you're also risking potentially losing that customer, and they're soured to whatever brand it might have been, and they like I'll throw something else, throw something that I can get. Yeah, so I mean it's tough. I think in a perfect world they just have enough of everything, and to go around, and that they would even last a week or two or a month on their site because they have so much supply. But I know it's been tough for them to gauge, even going back to the initial Cloudbreaker release last year, to gauge exactly what demand was going to be. There's been so much more intrigue in their brand and Eagle and his brand, and then the collector market. It's just kind of a whirlwind.
Yeah, literally. I mean, you combine everything in 2020. It's been absolutely wild. I mean, you've probably got, I don't know, I'm just going to throw some random numbers out, but I imagine the sport's probably grown at least 20% in the total amount of players since March, just from new people finding the game. And then, now you're dealing with already having manufacturing problems and slowdowns and long shipping delays and stuff like that. So yeah, very interesting. I think we can all agree that more than likely we'll see demand going up as the years continue to go on. Companies continue to get more data, they'll be able to create a more accurate demand. And, I think also at the end of the day, we also have to realize that more than likely there's going to be someone who doesn't get it. And that's just unfortunate, but at least disc golf has that demand right now. I'd much rather see it in that direction than in the direction of, wow, nobody's buying these discs. Like, we just lost a ton of money by making 10,000 Cloudbreakers and we sold 1,000 of them. So definitely not the worst problem to have. I can imagine the complaints potentially that you got for that release as well as other releases probably weren't the most fun thing to read. I know it was literally a war zone on Discmania's Instagram that day. But hopefully, people will kind of also help realize, and we won't have as much of those negative feedback coming back in. But I think that's pretty good here. I want to talk about what exactly OTB is and what it kind of stands for. So let's kind of start with what exactly, we hinted at it a little bit earlier. We kind of talked about it, but what exactly is OTB discs, and what makes it different from everything else?
Sure. I mean, so at this point, we're a retailer. We're essentially the middleman between the manufacturers and then the end consumer, being the golfer. And so that's what we try to do is buy as many discs as we can, so that we have a ton of variety for people when they come to our site, that anything you're looking for, we can have. That's been obviously a lot tougher this year, but that's our goal. And then what we try to do is kind of what we touched on earlier, where we're trying to describe it better than anyone else can. One of our taglines is virtually in your hand, where we're going to try to make it so that this disc is, virtually in your hand. You're looking at it on your screen online, and we're going to try to describe it well enough that you can basically feel it in your hand. So, that's what we are. And then we're trying to bring some interesting content as well, whether it's different videos and test flights or stuff like that, or like you guys, we do a podcast and try to get into the business side of disc golf. That's called Jammin' with the Best is what our podcast is. And so we try to get some interesting players on and get their perspective and some fun interviews like that. And also just shoot the breeze and talk a little bit business side of disc golf. Also, we're goofy and we just throw back a few beers and see where it goes.
Cool. Another question I have for you guys is, maybe if you guys have noticed, but so there's old saying in NASCAR, what wins on Sunday sells on Monday. Mm-hmm. It was just back when NASCAR started, and whatever race car won on that Sunday afternoon, the next day is what potentially would be selling at the dealerships. So how much do you see of that in disc golf? Of Eagle McMahon won the tournament on Sunday, and now you see a little uptick in sales in Discmania discs. Or Haley King, she won the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So how much Discraft, do you see that? Do you guys notice that in the business?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was more noticeable before this crazy increase in demand, where now like everything's selling, but there's absolutely that effect. That saying holds true. And then another thing that you can see, especially in 2020 and where stuff's going now, is the social media that different players do has a big effect. I think it's a huge factor into why discs for Simon and Eagle are selling so well. Obviously, they're studs on the field and they're killing it and winning, the biggest tournaments that we have. But also, they're so ingrained in their fan base because they're constantly putting themselves out there with different videos. And like Ezra, who you guys had on, he doesn't have any discs yet, and he hasn't dropped the manufacturer that he's going to be going with. But I think he'll see a huge amount of sales whenever he does sign with someone, and that'll be, in large part due to obviously his play again, but with how much he does on social media, there's a big effect. But to answer your question, 100%, when players are playing really well, their discs are selling.
Yeah, that's definitely a really interesting theory. And thank you for that shout out, as well as thank you for dropping your own podcast. I've listened to it. I think it's a really, really good product that you guys put out along with your guys' business. And yes, if you haven't already listened to the Ezra episode, definitely go check it out. It was really good. I don't know if he's gotten an Instagram back or not. I know he posted a YouTube video about falling for a phishing scam on Instagram. So my business that I'm in, they make us do something like every 6 months about falling for phishing scams. So this is your official Chain Clankers warning. Do not fall for phishing scams. You're going to lose your account. Don't do it. All right. Just take an extra second and look at what the person sent you. Don't click every link you see. But with that, I think that's something that's really interesting, that especially with Ezra, hopefully he signs rather soon. And obviously good for him. I imagine you guys will still be able to work together. Hopefully that will be the case. I thought that was really interesting that you said, once he does sign that, he will, get a signature disc and then those will start selling a whole lot. Do you think that maybe, the more disc golf continues to grow and that you connect that with social media, that more signature discs are going to be on the way? And for example, you'll see less just Innova Pro Wraiths, but maybe you'll see more like Calvin Heimberg, I want to say he's champion destroyers coming out. Do you think we'll see significantly more of that hitting the marketplace as compared to just, regular discs hitting the marketplace?
Yeah, I think so. And I think we already have. I know Innova has expanded their team champion and their team star. Obviously the Sexton Firebird and the Coling Thunderbird, and, even going back to like the Anton Boss, there's been a lot of those signature Tour Series discs at that point. And like Trilogy rolled out a ton of them this year with Dynamic. I think they did version 1, 2, 3, and 4. for like 7, 8, or 9 different players. Looking at like Discraft, I think it was last year with their Tour Series Swirl ESP, and this year the Tour Series Swirl Z. I think they had 8 or 9 different molds probably. So I think it's something that manufacturers recognize that they can offer these different players, is not just like the cool factor of having a Tour Series or Signature Series disc, but also that they can provide them, some revenue from that too, where you're going to get a certain cut of each disc that's sold. So it's an easy way for manufacturers to kind of diversify and add a couple different SKUs or a dozen different SKUs to what they're offering throughout the year. It helps sales, going back to the last question, where if that player's doing well, then they're going to be able to sell more of those discs. I don't know if we'll see a lot more molds offered for these Tour Series discs, but I would imagine so. It seems like each of the major brands have a decent rollout for these. I know Prodigy was another one that did 7 or 8 of them. MVP is one that kind of doesn't seem to do that as much. They have their special rollouts like monthly. They're dropping a special edition disc, and it really hasn't been paired with players much. So I don't know if we'll see something maybe more from them going forward in that direction, or if they'll keep kind of bucking that trend and doing what they do. But it seems like a really easy yes from all the manufacturer side as far as just pumping out sales and being able to support that player. It's easy for the fans to have a very direct way to support that player too. So, and I hope so, because it's always something more interesting, even from just a player's perspective, not even a retailer, where I really hope we have more different things to offer. But as a player, like, I love that the Sexton Firebird exists as just a little bit of a variation from the standard Firebird. It's not the FAF, and it's not quite the Domi ones. They're just, a beautiful thing in between.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that's really cool is, like you said, giving the players the opportunity to have that financial opportunity from those discs. Because, maybe if they are having a bad week or they get hurt for some reason or whatever, and they're not able to go to events or do tournaments, as long as they have that social media following and they have a lot of people who want their discs, they're able to push that. They're able to work if they're on tour from their van, and push those discs out and sell them and help people who want their discs to get them. And so that helps them financially, which I think that's really cool, and it motivates a lot of players to do well, because it makes it easier to sell your own signature discs if people see you winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like Madison Walker and Nate Sexton are good examples of that this year, where they both really didn't play any tournaments, but still had their signature series discs. I think Madison's just dropped a couple weeks ago, and then of course the Sexton Firebird has been in and out of stock all year long. But right to your point, as far as them not really playing this year and still having a source of revenue, and then you look at Nate, who's got his commentary with Jomez, and they were doing Showmez, which was awesome. And there's so many different ways now for a player to make money that aren't tied to tournament results. Like Simon, I think, is killing it with all of his YouTube content, and is probably making a little bit of money from all those views too. And it's great. He's providing a lot of value to all the people that are watching. They're super fun to watch. He's really talented, obviously, as a golfer, but does great with editing and all that stuff too. So there's a lot of ways to make money in 2020, and it's awesome to see.
Yeah, and it's really awesome that he's doing that. Eagles getting close to that 75K mark. You see Jomez over 230,000 subscribers now on YouTube. Paul Macbeth is at the 69K range, I want to say, maybe. And, more of these players, I think, are going to realize, looking at Simon and watching, I want to call it almost a business model. The fact that he's grown so much on social media that he can push more discs, he can push merch, he can do all these other things and have continued success for maybe a longer time. And I think it also helps legitimize disc golf within the general public, and continues to make it one of those things where people look at it as an actual sport, not just, some guys out there having a grand old time in the middle of the woods doing whatever they're doing. Last question I want to have here on the business side before we kind of talk about sponsorships is, are you guys, I guess a good example of this is we see malls pretty much going away across America right now. You guys have your brick and mortar store. Are you guys thinking about potentially opening more of those up across the country? I know you're out there in California. Like, are you planning to open some, maybe in the Midwest or the East Coast or something like that? Or are you guys maybe still thinking that the online route is the best way to go forward?
For right now, 100%, the online route is the best way to go forward. It's something that we've talked about. There's a lot of different ways that we can go from here. It seems tough right now to open a second location and count on just the brick and mortar. And then there's the logistics of if we had two different locations and they were both tied into the website, how exactly would we go about shipping, until you get to like almost an Amazon level. It seems odd for, if you went on and ordered 3 different things, but they happen to be at 2 different facilities. Now we're shipping, 2 packages to you. So there's a little bit of logistics like that. I think what would happen, if anything, and we were to open a second location, it would be at a world-class course, something where it's very much tied to a course that has a lot of traffic and that would see enough demand from that standpoint. Otherwise, there's the back of the mind thoughts as some sort of like franchising opportunity and being able to set up, OTBs all over the country. But I don't expect that that's the route that we'll take, at least not anytime too soon.
Nice. All right, well, let's talk about sponsorship a little. I know that Ezra has his code. I want to say it gets free shipping, if I'm remembering it correct. It's literally just Ezra. Are there any other codes that maybe our listeners potentially could put in that's not Ezra's that could help them out at all?
Killing Ezra right now. He needs that.
Sure. I mean,
I'm sorry. I want to get everyone involved.
Yeah. We do have a few other floating out there right now. I think they're all free shipping codes. So
Okay.
they're all going to get you the same thing, but there's a handful of different ones. I know we've supported the GK Pro skins matches all year long. They're killing it with that. It's funny. We get a lot of props for that, and everybody's like, hey, thank you for, doing the skins matches. That's 100% to GK Pro and them. It was their concept. They're killing it with it. We were happy to throw some money at it and, get something for the players to fight for and give something to GK for, putting in the work. But that's all of them. But so we've got a GK Pro coupon. And then I think we've got a few others. Parsave, we're doing a lot of stuff with them. And they've got an exciting plan for 2021 that I think they'll be rolling out somewhat soon. And then we've got the ESPN airing. They're going to re-air that, so keep an eye out. We've got a couple commercials that'll be on that, and there'll be a promo code there. Trying to think what else. I think Ezra's the only player right now that we have a code with, though.
Cool. Well, then definitely use promo code Ezra at checkout for free shipping. Let's help this guy out. He gave us his time to come on our show, and you have as well. So let's definitely help him out. So I guess a question that we get a lot, and I think a lot of younger, when I say younger, I mean newer into the game, disc golfers are like, well, I see all these pros who are sponsored by their manufacturer and other little companies like that. What kind of goes into the process of picking out players and sponsoring them? What is something that you were looking for?
It's a tough one. It's something that we get asked probably every single day, multiple times a day throughout all the different formats. And it's something that was really easy to answer when we were starting out, and it was just a very local company, and we were sponsoring, some of the better local players, but it was very much, I was looking for people that would represent the brand well. Like cared way more about the person that you were than about the scores that you threw down, and also how much you were giving back to the sport. So a lot of the local tournament directors and club presidents were the first additions to the team, and just easy adds, selfless people. And then it's something that's been a little bit tougher to figure out as far as like a national scale. It's hard to really vet someone that you don't know. So we've been slow to adding players to our team from all over. We've added a few. One of our guys, Sam, came from Florida, used to live here. We go way back, and then moved to Florida. Then he came back here to take a position with us, and he had a handful of people that he knew in Florida that were very deserving. And then we've just slowly kind of added people that we can get to know over the course of a little bit of time. So, I mean, as far as people who are wondering what it takes, sure, rating is a big part of it, and how active you are as far as playing tournaments. Also, social media is a big component of it. The more kind of reach that you have, the more value you can bring to any company. And then as far as just being a good brand ambassador and someone who on the course, off the course, is going to represent the brand well. Those are a few of the big check marks, and whatever you can do to help grow the sport, you know, back to those TDs and club presidents. If you're, you know, donating all that time to the sport, then I feel that you should be getting something back, and we have an avenue to provide that. So something that we've tried to do, but it's kind of a tough answer that we struggle with all the time, because there's so many people that ask about it. And, you know, on one hand, we'd love to give something to everybody. And we know that there's so many deserving people that are reaching out. And so trying to figure out who of that bunch has been a little bit tough, but it's something that we're really trying to get better at.
Well, I mean, yeah, who doesn't want, you know, to be sponsored by a disc retailer? That's all you need, really, especially for, I guess, players that are not necessarily on tour or anything, and all they want to do is play. I mean, who doesn't want a bunch of discs all the time? So I bet it's tough.
Right? Yeah, get some free stuff.
Would you?
Yeah, it is. It is. And so go ahead.
No. Go ahead. Finish your answer. You're good.
Yeah, no, so it's something where it's a little easier to figure out some of the top tier players that we're looking to add, and obviously it's a very different structure as far as what they're getting back. With our guy Ezra, who was on your show, and that was great. Good job by you guys. With him, it was 100% shout out to Nate Perkins. He came on our podcast, I think last January, about a year ago, and said, keep an eye out for this guy. If there's someone you're looking to sponsor, have it be him. And, you know, we got super lucky with how good of a dude that he is. And he's got a great head on his shoulders as far as understanding the business side and what he has wanted. I remember when he was first in, and he surprised me with his answer, but it was a great answer when I was asking, what can we do for him? And just kind of assuming that it was going to be, hey, you know, hook me up with some discs and some merch and whatever, and we'll be good. But he just wanted the exposure more than anything else. He wanted awareness for what he knew was going to be his brand. So, you know, I love that about our dude Ezra. He knows what's up, and so he's got a bright future.
Yeah, that's awesome. And shout out to you guys for retweeting our tweet. Promoting the episode with Ezra. That was honestly really clutch by you guys. Yeah, like I said, I mean, I feel like we can have a whole podcast dedicated to, hey, Ezra's a really good guy, he's a really good player. But I mean, hey, let's be honest, he is. Yeah. Both of those things are true, and I definitely think within the next 5 years, this guy has a very high probability of walking away with a major or two in those. So I guess the last question I want to ask about sponsorships before we get into the ace round is it one of those things that, you know, do you want people to go into the DMs and try to get sponsored, or is it one of those things where it's like, another one of these guys just trying to get free discs? Or like, do you have any idea of maybe setting up a process for it in the future or something like that might make it a little bit easier on you guys? Or I guess, like, what's the overall tone with that? Like, do you want to continue to expand with sponsors? or sponsoring players, I guess, is a better way to
Yeah.
finish that question.
Yeah, it's something that we definitely want to continue expanding, and I have been thinking a lot about having some sort of official application process through the website. I know it'll generate a decent amount of buzz. Who, like you guys, like you were saying, Horatio, who doesn't want some free discs? So I'm sure we'll get a ton of entries there. But I think it's a good and fair place for people to be aware of what's going on and give them an avenue to reach out to us other than just the DMs. But I certainly don't mind those messages coming in. What I would recommend as far as getting a good response to just like a cold call, essentially, for that is if you have any creative ideas on what it is that you could bring to us, is something that I try to do when I'm reaching out to somebody, is like, hey, let me, I think we can do this together. This is what we can offer you. So bringing to the table, like, hey, it's one thing to say, I'm going to be on tour next year, or I'm going to try to make it to Am Worlds next year, or whatever that is. But, bringing something creative to the table, there's so much ingenuity out there, and the way that everybody thinks is just a little bit different each time, that inevitably there's a million different things that we could be doing that other people are thinking about and could offer to us. And we'd love bringing bright minds on as far as that. So I think, coming up with something creative and a way to stand out other than just, hey, what does it take to get sponsored, which is a fair question. And I like that you guys brought it up, because it gives a platform for us to give that answer more than just a social media post. But yeah, I would really like to get something on the website where we open up applications in December or January or something for some sort of annual sponsorship of a more local type player, other than the touring pro, where we're reaching out to them, and again, figuring out what we can do for them, instead of just, hey, what does it take for us to get our logo on you? So what are you doing for us, sort of thing.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, I think we're ready to get into the ace round. So let's get started here. These are the same 5 questions we want to ask everyone who comes on the show, see how their answers differ, and maybe gain a little new perspective. So I think, again, we've been having some pretty good episodes lately, and I think this is going to be another really good ace round, and I'm really interested to hear these questions. So let's start here with number 1. You're taking a buddy to go buy their first set of discs. What is the number 1 putter, mid-range, and driver you would tell them to get when they just get started to play?
So one thing that we always coach when someone comes into our shop and they're looking for exactly that is, I like to go by feel. It's so much by feel. Obviously, we're not going to give a new player something crazy overstable. So there's going to be some veto power as far as, no, we're not going to let you buy this.
Yeah.
But specifically for putters, starting there, go by feel. We don't want you to start with a Zone or Harp or Pig, something super beefy, but it's by feel. If you like a beaded putter, if you like a deep dish putter, if you like something a little thinner or beadless, what I would recommend for any beginner starting out is to go with a soft disc. I think once you start to figure out your game a little bit more and get towards, AM1 and Open, you're probably going to prefer a stiffer putter. I think it comes out of the hand more consistently, but a soft putter is going to be way more friendly when it gets to the basket. It's going to be a little bit more friendly on rollaways. So I would just recommend something soft, go with maybe like a Zero Soft Pure. It's a little thinner. It's less likely to get stuck maybe on your fingers. And yeah, just something soft and friendly for the basket. Going up to the mids, I've got to go with our girl Paige and go with the Soul. It's a great understable mid-range. It's super easy to learn on. It's got a comfortable feel in the hand. It's a little bit thinner, and it's just so beginner friendly on the flights. Plus it's her disc, so might as well give the shout out. And then for the driver, obviously you're going to go with something lower speed, something in the 6, 7, 8 range. We like to go with the Diamond from Latitude 64. Is a really good one. It maxes out at 159 grams for most of them. They have a small run of 170 plus, but It's mostly lightweight. If you're going to go with something full weight, it's hard to go wrong with like a DX Leopard, or the Sail from DGA is another one that's super beginner friendly. So that would be probably my top three would be like a Zero Soft Pure, a Z line sole, and then a Diamond or a Sail, depending on their arm strength at the beginning.
Sweet. And I'm sure they can get all these on your website.
As long as they're in stock, as long as the manufacturers have them and we can order them and they're not sold out already, then yeah, we've got them.
Yeah, my girlfriend might have to be going over there to get herself some more soles. She loves that disc. She'll use it driving,
such a good disc.
approaching, putting. Our new little catchphrase is the soul is a putter. So if you haven't tried it out, who knows? Maybe
Nice.
try it out.
Cool.
Yeah, there's something to that, honestly.
Sorry, go ahead. All right. Question number 2. Your favorite course you've played and the number 1 course you would love to play.
Favorite course I've played, there's like 3 that stand out. De La obviously is top for a lot of people, and being in California, it's one that I've played a decent amount. We're probably an hour and a half from there. Brook Trails up in Willits is gorgeous. It's, 100-foot tall redwood trees just everywhere. You're in this like enchanted forest. It's amazing. It's got some really fun shots too, but kind of just the aura of being there and the beauty that's everywhere. And then Glen Eagles, which is a pay-to-play in San Francisco, where they did SFO the last couple years. I guess they missed 2020 for obvious reasons, but 2019 and 2018. It's one of the sickest courses on tour, and it just is a course that is very, very difficult, and we like getting beat up out on the golf course and shooting 11-teen over par and having all sorts of struggles. But it's fun. I think those are the top 3. If I had to choose just one, it'd probably be Brooks Trails, just for the sheer beauty. And as far as courses I'd like to play, I think top of the list for me is Maple Hill, and then Smuggler's Notch. I think, again, if I had to choose one, I would probably go Smuggler's Notch because it has 2 courses. So I'm cheating, but you know what? I'm going to take it.
Nice. Let's talk number 3 here. If you could go back to when you just first started playing disc golf, or maybe when you first started taking disc golf seriously, what is the number 1 tip you would give yourself?
It would probably be just to slow down. It's more of a mental tip than anything. Part of it is, maybe your form and be a little slower, like a Danny Lindahl, slow is smooth and smooth is far, to kind of slow down a little bit. I know when I was younger, I would be the guy that's just going to run up to the tee pad and just throw, not really think about my shot as much once I'm on the tee pad and just go. So it would be definitely just slow down and kind of take your time, and then enjoy it too, obviously. And then if I'm going to cheat and give 2 answers for like all of these questions, but would be to really look at form. I've got a big arm swing, kind of like an Eric Oakley arm swing, and I think that there's probably a little bit of ceiling on my distance or my accuracy or whatever, because I have that. If I had maybe watched a lot of form early on and cared more about tweaking it, I could be, a little better probably.
Anything on the business side, since we're talking business mainly today, something you would go back when you just started OTB, fresh, young kid with awesome, cool ideas, anything there that you would go back and tell yourself?
It would be social media. It's something that I think we've done well since I went full-time in 2018, and bringing our first employee, Aaron, on. He's killed it with social media since then, and listening to like Gary Vee since then, and a lot of the stuff that he puts out. It would be probably back in 2014 when we started, is just hammer down on all the social media platforms and hit everything there and just be aggressive.
Cool. All right. Question number 4, your favorite memory playing disc golf or being in the business of disc golf?
And with being in the business of disc golf, I think my favorite memory has just been every hire that we have made so far. It's been fun to see people come on and to, hopefully improve those, those individuals' lives by having them be able to be full-time disc golf. And just adding a new friend into the mix and being able to, basically hang out with them every day. We work hard, but we, it feels like a hangout, chill atmosphere. So I think for the business side, it's that. And then as far as favorite memories for playing, it's probably any time that I've been out there with my dad or my mom and getting to, my dad plays, my mom would just travel with me a little bit and go into those different events. So going to like probably AM Worlds. I went to AM Worlds in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. So, those were fun. That was the experiences and like the road trips and traveling with all the friends back and forth to the tournament is almost more fun to me than playing in the tournament or even winning the tournament. It's just the time spent with those people for sure.
Nice. Let's do our last one here. What is your goal moving forward in disc golf, as well as what is your goal moving forward with OTB?
So personally with the disc golf game, I just like to play more. It's something I used to play a lot. And then over the last couple years, I really haven't done well with carving out time for myself to play. So I'd like to do more of that. I'm starting to get a little bit better with that, but I still tend to just choose work over playing at this point. And I don't necessarily regret that, but I do miss golfing as much as I used to. And then as far as for the business standpoint is to just do whatever we can to help grow the sport. We've got some big fun things in the works as far as hopefully being able to help with players' value and player contracts. One of the things that I'm really excited about that's probably a year or two out is trying to build some sort of like off-season training facility for these top level pros, or really anybody who's touring pro and is looking for somewhere to be in the off season to build a couple championship level courses on 100 acres somewhere and have somewhere where people can hook up their RVs or have some sort of like almost hotel-like feel or little cabins. Not sure the logistics of that yet, but to try to basically, grow the sport on that end as far as giving these players the world-class training facility that they deserve to hone in their craft, whether it's, slow-mo cameras and technology and being able to break down their form, or just indoor putting facilities or a driving range where they can test out all sorts of discs and different shots. And we're going to try to do something like that. That's what I'm really working hard towards right now as far as a 2-year goal.
Nice. That would be dope. That would be really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
Hey, who knows? Maybe Horatio and I, maybe one day we can get good enough to stop by that sometime and test it out. That would be really cool. That would be really cool.
Yeah,
Andy,
bring it.
We really appreciate you. We know you're a very busy man. We know time is money. We appreciate you spending your time here with us today. Any final words or any shout outs you want to give to anyone before we get out of here?
Just a lot of love for the disc golf community as a whole. We're thankful for all the people who choose to shop with us or, listen to the podcast or whatever it is. There's just nothing but love coming from this side to the whole disc golf community. And we're going to try to do what we can every day to get better at what we do and to bring as much value back to the sport that we all love and that's given us so much. And so, yeah, thank you guys for having me on, and good luck with everything that you do, and stay in touch, and we'll have to get you guys on our podcast to return the favor.
Thank you for listening to the Chain Clankers podcast. Make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Chain Clankers, and hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to us from so you never miss another episode.